right, welcome everybody. This is a regularly scheduled meeting for public facilities. It's Wednesday, March 18th, 2026. And today we have from Ward 2, Councilor Albright, from Ward 3, Councilor Kelly, Ward 4, Councilor Damubed, who is online. Ward 5, Councilor Getz, who's vice chair of the committee, and Ward 6, Councilor Gordon, and I'm David Kalis from Ward 8. We also have Alex Clark-Arce, Commissioner of Public Buildings. We have Utilities Director Tom Fitzgerald, Sustainable Materials Director Juanita Trabert. We have Sean Sullivan, our Commissioner of DPW, and Lisa Pennell, our clerk. I think that's everybody. All right. Okay, so first item. Let's start with 111-26. Is that okay?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Refer to the Public Facilities and Finance Committee's repurposing of $150,000 for the renovation of the Fire Station 2 bathroom. His Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to repurpose the $150,000 allocated in docket 120-25 for the renovation of the bathroom at Fire Station 2, rather than for updates to Fire Station 1 and 2 living quarters. Mr. Clark-Arce, can you explain?
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Councilor Kalis. I'm going to start by apologizing because I kind of missed something that's important, but I would like to walk through it. And I'm going to suggest we hold it. We had this docket item originally, the $150,000 to do some upgrades in the living quarters at Fire Stations 1 and 2. We also had a docket item which was 411-24, which was a series of municipal updates, municipal projects. It was a list of projects funded at $775,000. In those projects, we were managing several projects. We were able to adjust the funding between them, managing everything to the $775,000. In that list was renovations to Fire Station 1 and 2 kitchens, which I did not catch. And I thought it was bathrooms. And our goal was to repurpose the $150,000 and put it with the $250,000 to do the renovations of the bathroom, showers, and locker room at Station 2. So he really should have docketed repurposing a request to repurpose both sets of funds.
So Mr. Clark-Arce, are you going to need a new item?
I
think you will.
Yes, I'm going to have to redocket this. Either hold this and amend this. I don't know. What
I'm going to do is instead of going through it in detail, let's NAN it, and then you can redocket it.
Okay, and we'll redocket the request for both items.
Okay. Before we do, Councilor Albright.
Before we NAN it, could I ask you a question, Commissioner Belkacem?
Yes.
So, if the living quarters needed to be updated at one point, and then you decided that the bathrooms needed more work than the living quarters, would it be possible to just increase the amount of money and do the living quarters? It's been a long time since I had a tour of the fire stations. But if the living quarters really need to be updated, and I don't know if that's the case, but I assume it is because it was in this docket item, could you ask the mayor if he could please docket so that all of these items get fixed? The living quarters, the bathrooms, and whatever else was in the other item.
Absolutely. We can see about doing that. We, working with the chiefs, we kind of are all operating on working with the money we had funded. And clearly the locker room, shower room area was the area that they thought really was the most impactful. Because the $150,000 to the 2 living areas would give you about $75,000 in each. It wasn't going to be meaningful enough. So they were looking to find the most critical item to do. I will ask through the mayor's office if we could generate some funding to hold on to that. I could certainly ask.
If you could perhaps arrange a site visit for anybody who wanted to go see the living quarters, I think that
Sure.
would be a lot.
Okay, I will do that. I will follow up and I will send out an email to folks and we can walk through that. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I truly apologize that I just didn't catch this correctly.
All right, does somebody have a motion?
I do.
Okay.
I will make a motion to NAN, but I will say this was a very confusing, messed up item, confusing kitchen, bathroom, shower, locker room, living areas, fire station 1 and 2 with a previous item. So I'm very happy we're going to NAN it, and we're happy to have you come back with a better thought through item.
Yep.
So
Okay.
I move to NAN.
All right, there's a motion to NAN. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that's unanimous, including Cyrus. Councilor Bank, you have that. Okay, so next item. Thank you, Mr. Valcarce.
Thank you.
Do you have a preference on which one goes first?
I don't,
Okay.
but Juanita, I think.
I was anticipating going first, but whatever
Is
you like.
prepared.
Okay, 105-26, overview of the Sustainable Materials Management Division. Councilor Kales and Getz requesting an overview and discussion of the Department of Public Works Sustainable Materials Management Division in preparation for the budget process. Timothy, you want to join us?
Do you have the video? Okay. Do you want to see it?
I would gladly.
Sure. Sure, yes, at the
There
table.
for the taking.
Cool.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay. So some of you may have seen this update before, but it's just updated since the last time I gave it, which was in 2024. Next slide. So I always like to review what is actually covered in my division because it gets confusing. So we are responsible for, so the Sustainable Materials Management Division is responsible for curbside collection services, including trash and recycling. And then yard waste we do in-house with DPW staff. The trash and recycling is handled by the waste management contract. And then there's dumpster collection services that take place at municipal buildings and some residential properties, and those are also baked into the waste management contract. And then we operate the Resource Recovery Center on Rumford Ave. And then we also operate the street sweeping program. Next slide. So the division of our staffing in management and administrative, we have 4.5 FTEs, including myself, a superintendent, an assistant superintendent, our waste diversion coordinator, and a part-time administrative assistant. And then we have our street sweeping crew that has 7 staff, our yard waste team that has 6 staff, and at the Resource Recovery Center, we have 3 full-time staff there, and then a position called handyman, who actually does a lot of different things throughout the city, and he's under this division because his primary role is picking up roadkill.
My dog helps a lot with that.
Next slide. So our residential curbside collection services include our weekly trash collection with 64-gallon blue carts. We have overflow bags or an additional cart available for a fee. We have weekly single stream recycling with 64-gallon green carts. We offer yard waste collection 41 weeks per year, including Christmas tree pickup in January. We have bulky waste pickup available at $20 per item. And this kind of large recycling pickup, but we don't have a really good name for it. Appliance, e-waste, scrap metal at $25 per item. Mattress and box spring recycling is available curbside for $60 per item. And we have organic subscription service offered by a preferred vendor program. So residents are still paying for that, but it is arranged by the city. Next slide. So I wanted to go back a little bit in time just to make folks aware that we started a new waste management contract July 1st of 2025. So FY 26 was the first year of that contract. We went out for an RFP for the first time ever in 2024. And so this was the result of that effort. And I would just look at the total lines and the increase over previous year. And so when we originally approached Waste Management in April of 2023, so 3 years ago from around this time, we let them know that we were considering going out for competitive procurement. And we asked them to give us a proposal for the next 5-year term of the contract. And those were the numbers that they provided. We were not satisfied with those numbers. And so we went out, did a competitive procurement process, and lo and behold, the same vendor that we've worked with for a number of years came back with much more competitive rates. So we were really satisfied by doing that process, and I just want to let folks know that that's likely the best decision in the future as well.
Pressure works.
Yes. Next slide.
There's
Counselor
a
Gaines.
little bit of a breakdown there that would be great to have explanation, like,
sure.
you know, like when it says roll off, what does that mean?
Okay.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, so the residential line is both trash and recycling curbside collection. The processing fee is our cost per ton for recycling. And so we don't know how many tons we will collect, so we don't have a solid number there, but we know what our rate is. And then our estimated processing costs were based on a forecast of how much recycling we would collect, and that's that next line. And then dumpsters is the dumpster service that's provided to city buildings, including schools, and those select residential properties. And then our roll-off service is primarily at the Rumford Yard. We have 2 trash compactors there that are functioning for city operations. We have a recycling roll-off also for city operations, and then we have a construction and demolition dumpster at that yard, and then also at our Elliott Street yard that fall under that roll-off category.
What does roll-off mean to you?
Roll-off
Get
is like
away from,
Roll-off is a big 30-yard box that has wheels on one side, and so a truck has to hook it on one end, and then it raises it up, and then it pulls it with a pulley, and then it slams down onto the truck bed. But it's a big 30-yard box.
they roll those big boxes off 2 existing sites that there's already stuff at.
Yeah, and we swap out the boxes, like we'll get an empty one and they take the full one.
So I'm gonna recognize Counselor Maliki who's here. And then Counselor Gordon, do you have a question?
I was just curious about what the select residential properties, what does that mean? Who are these select residential? Again,
So it's an interesting setup. In our ordinance, the way that the definition of who receives city service is defined is that the city will provide service to any resident unless they have a special permit that says that they must have private service. And so there are a number of typically older apartment buildings and some condo complexes that do not have a special permit requiring this. And so we provide service to them. But we don't provide service to anyone with a newer special, like, I forget the cutoff, but I talked to somebody in planning about it. It was sometime when the last major change to the special permit process happened, that essentially all new large construction projects for residential would require a special permit, but these older buildings that haven't ever had like major modifications to them don't.
so it's grandfathered in.
Essentially, yes.
Interesting. Counselor Getz.
The roll off, you know, in terms of like the the cardboard recycling,
Mhm.
do we get any fee? Does that get sold anywhere? Is it something that we see dollars back as the city?
Cardboard, we get a very small amount of money back. Like last month, it was $200. Because,
For the whole city?
well, so, no, sorry. So just for the cardboard roll-off box specifically. So at Rumford, we have a box that we just collect cardboard, and it usually ends up being somewhere in the neighborhood of like 15 tons per month, I believe. And between the cost of the trip price, which is what we pay the most for, it ends up that we don't make very much money on it overall.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
Sorry, Councilor Maliki, and then Albright, sorry.
And that's just corrugated cardboard that can go into that, or not any kind of cardboard, correct?
correct, yeah.
Yeah. My question had to do with so you said the special permit large projects had to pay their own disposal. Now that we have village center zoning and the by right projects, will they get city pickup?
I would not, so I don't actually even make that call. It's more to do with, I think it's the zoning board of appeals and planning that know more about the special permit.
Well, the ZBA
when that happens.
That would affect the 40Bs, but for anything that's by right, I would think that would be a change.
I've not been informed, like, I haven't had a conversation about that with anyone. No one's approached me about it.
Well, they're not built yet, so.
Yeah, good question. Okay, Councilor Albright?
So actually, I had the same question that Councilor Maliki had, and there are some what they call MRT, multi-residence transit, smaller units that are actually about to come online. And then there are 2 larger units in my ward that are in the process of being developed. So I think you ought to hightail it to planning or call them tomorrow and say, what are the plans for the VCOD? Because I think nobody dealt with that issue.
Right.
So we'll have to you guys will have to figure out who's gonna deal with that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
certainly.
thanks.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Councilor Donovan?
Yeah, thank you. I'm just wondering, are Newton Housing Authority properties covered under our waste management contract?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay, let's continue, thank you.
Yes. Next slide. So we kind of covered this in going into the breakdown, but this is just what is included in our waste management contract. So we already talked about curbside trash and recycling collection, and then hauling to our end sites, single stream recycling processing at the materials recovery facility that's owned by Waste Management in Avon. Bulky waste and white goods collection are in this contract. Cart fleet management, so that's the procurement, the procurement of new carts, and then cart repairs, deliveries, removals, swaps, dumpster collection services, and then roll-off service at the Resource Recovery Center. Next. So the biggest changes that happen in this new contract that we're in, the most public-facing changes were that there will now be an annual residential education guide mailed. So it was sent out last July, the first one, but we'll have one every single year. And then we removed 4 holiday delays. This included MLK Junior Day, President's Day, Indigenous Peoples Day, and Veterans Day. I think the first one was the hardest, and like they all got progressively easier, with maybe the exception of, I think MLK Day was also the week of, or was it
President.
Yeah, where there was we put out information about no delay, and then there was a snowstorm that ended up with a delay. So it led to just a lot of confusion, which I don't blame folks for. But going forward, we don't intend to need to do as much publicity about no delay, that this is just the new schedule. And we tried our best to promote it. I think overall it went really well. The recycling processing that is like the way that our recycling processing is charged will change. So what we were being charged on, what was leaving Waste Management's facility, and what I fought for very hard was to get us to have our recycling charged on what we were sending them. And so that's what the composition is. And so we now do 2 witnessed 11-day audits each fiscal year. And we're actually in the middle of our second audit right now that will actually lead to price changes. So our first audit was in the fall. And then we expect to get technology that will work to link collections to address, which if we could essentially have a confirmation of a pickup at everyone's home, when we get missed pickup requests, that I would say otherwise have evidence, like we have our own sense and kind of evidence of there weren't really missed, people just forgot to set them out. And so ultimately our goal would be to encourage more folks to not submit missed pickup requests, kind of have a little bit more accountability in that system. Right now we just do a lot of duplicitous work.
Forgiveness.
Yeah. Yes, we are very forgiving right now. Next slide. So these are the services at our Resource Recovery Center. So it is a staffed drop-off recycling center that's open either 5 or 6 days a week, depending on the season. In the summer, we're only open 5 days a week due to the Teamsters contract that has summer hours. We collect over 25 material streams. This year we will have 17 household hazardous waste collection events. Normally it's 18, one lands on 4th of July, so canceling it. We do 2 annual document shredding and drug take-back events, one in the spring, one in the fall. And we have our beloved swap shop and book shed reuse programs. And then now we offer year-round yard waste drop-off. Next. So I always like to talk about where is away. So our solid waste, our trash goes to Wheelabrator Millbury. It's a waste to energy facility. In FY25, we had 16,500 tons that were sent there. And this is just from curbside collection service. We do not get any tonnage information from any of the dumpster pickups that are within our contract. For single stream recycling from our curbside program, it was 7,500 tons. From our yard waste collection program, that's 3,750 tons. It's actually measured in cubic yards, but I like to kind of translate it to make it apples to apples. And then all of our other material streams that are collected at the Resource Recovery Center have other independent vendors and much, much lower collection volumes.
And what do our trends look like? I know you sometimes had a slide that showed.
I think it's maybe my next slide. It's in here. I do have a trend slide.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get to it in just a couple minutes, I think. So our waste disposal composition, we've never done a composition audit of what's in our trash specifically for Newton. So I use the data that is from Mass DEP. Every 3 years, the waste to energy facilities, there's five of them in the state. They do an audit of what's coming into their facility. And so I take this data specifically from the facility that our trash goes to. And that's where we get these numbers from. So I think the thing of interest is the biggest slice of the pie. 1/3 is organic waste that is being sent to an incinerator. And we're paying a lot of money to do that. Next slide. I really want to keep people informed about the kind of state of affairs in the state with regard to our trash capacity. So I just mentioned we have 5 waste to energy facilities. There's only 2 functioning landfills that accept municipal solid waste. And those are both expected to not last much longer. I don't remember the exact numbers on their permits, but like dates on their permits, but we keep having less and less in-state capacity, and it's leading to more and more exporting of trash. Right now, we export 45% of our waste to states as far away as Michigan and Alabama and South Carolina. And so Newton is not doing that, but as prices increase or as facilities close down within a specific geographic range, this is becoming the option available to different municipalities. So I think it's just important to keep in mind and that it also plays a role in our pricing.
So how are you able to get such a good 5-year price lock? It looks like.
So that was for hauling, which is separate from our trash disposal.
Oh,
So we have a separate contract for where our trash goes and with that facility. And that is actually a different contract. I'm sorry, I don't have my slides memorized, but I'm sure it's coming up where I talk about that contract. So yeah, actually this next slide. So Newton's 20-year disposal contract ends June 30th of 2028. We are in an agreement with a consortium of 36 municipalities. And I'm playing a role on the negotiating team. Negotiations, well, I would say like the organizing among the municipalities started last year to get to the negotiating table with Wheelabrator. Typical contract terms are now only 5 years because of the volatility in the system. And we're hoping for 10. That's kind of one of the very few things that we plan to bargain for other than cost. But we have seen in other municipal disposal contracts, as they've turned over, we've seen increases of up to 40% in their cost. So it's very concerning, alarming, absolutely on everyone's radar.
that's all right.
So what's the role of tonnage? Or is that, I mean, that's how you measure it.
Yep.
What's the role of tonnage in the cost as opposed to every other costs in the contract?
Yeah, so in the slide that I showed before about our waste management contract, so we get charged our hauling cost, which is it's most expensive to have a truck go around to every single person's house every week. It's expensive. But then what we collect, we pay a per ton price for our recycling that goes to Avon, and then we pay a per ton price for our trash that goes to Millbury. And so that's kind of like the major 4 costs of this program.
Would you be able to, and probably not tonight, but give us a breakdown of the parts of the contract that are tonnage, hauling, recycling, and so forth, so we just have a sense for, because obviously some of us are worried, are interested in composting. And I'd love to know if the tonnage is important, or maybe it's not very important.
So I'll just say that in the kind of rough math that I have done, it's not, if we were to get, say, 20% of our organics out of our trash, that is not enough to offset the cost of adding another truck going to everyone's house. So again, hauling is the major price. To add another truck going to everyone's house is a big expense. It's an offset, but it doesn't cover that full cost. So I think there's a lot of different options that could be explored and have been explored. Like there's been several different reports that have come out in the past handful of years. So there was one done by the Sustainable Materials Management Commission in 2021 that talked about some options for what the city could and should be investigating. And then there was a kind of piggybacking report that was done by my division, specifically on improvements to curbside collection. And so we addressed a couple of options, both for organics and reducing our trash tonnage overall in those documents. So I could certainly follow up with links to where those live right now.
And if you could also, we have, what's the name of the company that does the composting now?
Black Earth Compost.
Black Earth. So if Black Earth were to do everybody, if everybody got to do Black Earth or was required to do Black Earth, how would that impact the cost? If you could let us know that.
Yeah, certainly. We can come up with some numbers based on what other communities are paying. There's a handful of communities that are starting to move to that model. It's been very slow because it's a huge initial cost and investment to make that leap. But there is data available.
So you're saying it's a huge initial investment. Over time, is it a good thing? I mean, you could let us know that too. Over time, it's still a huge cost, or it is better over time.
Yeah, I don't know that. I mean, I think it would slowly decrease these other costs, like our trash tonnage would go down. But it would mostly be a remaining lingering cost if we want another truck to go around to everyone's house.
There's still the hauling. expense.
Yeah.
And that's assuming then, sorry, that Black Earth would then be picking up all public, like it would no longer be in private. Then the city would have to pay for that. Is that what you're asking about? Yeah, that's.
So disposal costs in other municipalities have increased by 40%. They're gonna increase for us.
Mhm.
Who knows how much? And 28 isn't too far away.
Yeah.
So how are you thinking about that?
We have a little insight into what our possible pricing increase is from when we did the 2024 RFP. So when we put out an RFP, it was not only for our hauling services that ended up going into the waste management contract, but we did ask for pricing for trash disposal. And so we were already locked into a contract, and our current vendor called me and was like, do you have something to tell me? I was like, we're just curious. We're exploring, exactly. We were very interested in what the landscape looked like. And so they ended up being the only proposer for that for the 2 years of where our contract, it was FY 29 and FY 30, where our contract did not currently cover. And they provided us pricing for that, which I then took to this consortium group to let them know, well, this is where they were at in 2024. Of course, that number could still go up. But it wasn't as jarring as I feared. So it was, I don't know the percent difference offhand. Like this year, our trash tonnage is $86 per ton. And on, I think the FY 29 number was somewhere like 98. So it was an increase, but it wasn't crazy. It wasn't 40%.
Right, okay, so that's good. I guess a couple of years ago, when you had made this presentation, it kind of instilled some panic in me, and that was probably
I'm scared about it too, for
the
sure.
price increases.
Yeah.
And we started thinking about pay as you throw and other types of things. And I don't know if you're working on, if you look at things like that within your body of work, or if you want the council to kind of push things with items.
I think it's a tough kind of, I don't know, who's going to make the call, who's going to decide what direction is best. I think it needs to be determined based on goals. So I think of higher level goals that the city is trying to reach, like climate action goals. I don't know exactly where the climate action plan 2.0 is, but I know that there was an effort to get waste reduction goals baked into the climate action plan. And that could be a contributing driver to making these changes. And I think it ultimately will end up being some collaborative effort between all decision-making entities. I would say I see my role as presenting what's happening, what I see, and then different options that are available that other cities do. I'm not trying to create something new and, really go off the reservation. I try to bring things that I find to be realistic, even if they are a little ambitious.
That's good. I think we welcome ideas.
You're presenting information and options.
Yes.
And letting other people make the decisions.
Absolutely, yeah.
Councilor Albrecht.
I was just wondering about one other aspect of this, which is besides cost. What's the benefit to society as a whole, or to the world as a whole, if we got our composting organic material out of trash?
Mhm.
I mean, besides the cost issue, is there environmental issue? Is there an
Absolutely,
environmental?
yeah, there's strong environmental benefits for that, both from a climate perspective and from if you're doing aerobic composting, you return those nutrients back to the soil, and there's a lot of advantages to that, certainly. There's like compost in and of itself adds a lot of value to the soil in like moisture retention and all these other advantageous properties that with modern agriculture, we're depleting our soil of all of these properties. So there's a lot to be said for that, I think.
So I
It's
don't-
just harder to quantify.
Right, so I don't know, I was just gonna say, I don't know how you quantify that when you're
Mhm.
asking a municipality to decide what it should do.
Yeah.
But it should at least be an item, a line item on the list.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure, thanks.
Here's one.
Oh,
Thank you.
Councilor Young.
I've got my second eyes over there.
Yeah.
I'm curious if is there any data from the communities that have gone to sort of universal compost collection? How much compost is actually getting into the compost collection and how much people are just still putting in their trash?
I think Cambridge would probably be the best example of that, and I certainly don't know their data off the top of my head. What we do know that is rather discouraging is that from even very well-established programs, unless there is a mandate and an enforced mandate, we only see about 40 to 50% participation in any voluntary program. And this goes to like Toronto, where this has been established for 20 years. And, you know, I talked with some folks there and they were like, no, that's what the situation is here. The only places that are seeing a difference is like California. There's some places that are really aggressive. They have some really aggressive state laws, where they're doing a lot of active enforcement and like finding and ticketing and like, you know, really holding folks accountable, just residents accountable, that they want all of the stuff separated out. So it's on the menu of options.
So the 40% or whatever participation, that means that's the percent of people that are even using the compost containers.
Yeah.
Councilor Kelly?
What are we at in Newton? I think, aren't we under that in terms of how many? Yeah,
Then have adopted Black Earth,
Yeah.
with the preferred vendor, it's about 10%.
so terrible.
Let's move on. I definitely touch on like organics and stuff in here too. So I always like to review the recycling market conditions. A lot of folks, you know, hear all sorts of terrible things, and the mainstream media every once in a while will pick up and say that recycling is not even worth it, it's broken. I am here to say that those stories, even in the height of the supply and demand crisis, were really sensationalized. They were absolutely cherry picking programs that were essentially going belly up, but it was extremely few and far between. The recycling system is flawed, no doubt, but it is functioning. And we're not going to get to zero waste with it, but it is absolutely much better than disposal, especially when looking at it from a climate perspective. And really the best thing about that is that we're offsetting the original mining of materials, which certain materials like aluminum are extremely damaging from a climate perspective. So it's extremely valuable to maintain recycling programs for that. The problem is that commodity values in the recycling system fluctuate and municipal budgets do not. So there's been a lot of shakeups in the way that contracting has been done in the last couple of years to try and account for that. And in my opinion, I think in the end, municipalities are paying a lot more because the risk that the companies that collect and sort this material, the risk that they were taking on prior to 2018, they've now shifted over to us in the form of higher prices. So in 2018 was the really big shakeup. China imposed an import ban that essentially they were the customer for 40% of the world's recycling, and they stopped buying it overnight. So it was a very abrupt change, and there was a lot of stuff that sat for a while because it didn't have a new buyer. And then when there were new buyers, it was a much lower price. So it really created this big upset. Recycling markets did go up during the pandemic. And in fact, Newton, in the only year that I've been here, we made $70,000 on our recycling in FY22. So it is possible. It's just that the markets need to be very, very high in order for us to gain the revenue share that's defined in our contract. Everyone likes to talk about how much recycling costs, but I like to highlight, yeah, but look at how much we're paying for trash. And we do expect to see an FY26 increase because of our costs, our contract. Our cost per ton did go up fairly significantly, like 10 or 15%. So we definitely expect to see, on top of that, the markets are not good right now. So we're definitely going to see a higher annual cost in FY 26. Next slide.
So do you reflect that in your budget?
I try. We kind of do, I would say, every year I present Maureen with different scenarios. I'm like, well, this is a good scenario, this is a medium scenario, and this is a worst case scenario. She kind of typically picks the medium one. So we never know exactly the generation, and we don't know what the markets are going to do. So there's a little bit of fluctuation. So yeah, this is the overtime line. So we reached peak trash in FY 24 in FY 04, and we've seen a steady decrease since then. Kind of a little bit of stagnation following the carts, which was interesting. You would think we would continue to see a much steeper decrease, but I almost think of it now like pretty much since like FY 15 to now, it's like the amount that folks put into their cart, it's like the cart almost creates like a ceiling. So we could, you know, again, on the menu of options in some of these other reports, if we changed like the cart size and reduced that, that could lead to a much more significant drop than we've seen in the recent past. Recycling is interesting. It's definitely remained fairly steady throughout the years that I have data for. And there's a lot of reasons for that. A lot of materials have become lighter and lighter over time. So even though we're collecting perhaps less volume, no, more volume, but it's less weight. So it's difficult to translate that in when the metric is always weight for these materials. Next slide. So for organics, the curbside program that we have, it's $60 per 6 months for weekly collection. And right now there is a free starter kit available, and the bottom point points to why. In the 2022 economic development law from the state, Newton received funding through calendar year 2026 for starter kits for this program. And it's up to $70,000. And I do not think we are going to come close to that. I think we've maybe issued a couple hundred of them since that time. Right now we have around 3,200 participants, which is 10% of total households. And over time, since the program started in 2019, or since Black Earth started providing the service in 2019, we've diverted just under 4,000 tons of food waste. Next. We also have a drop-off program.
Counts.
I just wanted to make a suggestion. Maybe the mayor should put in one of his newsletters something about the Black Earth.
Oh, just like a promotion.
Another promotion, just to keep advertising it.
Yeah.
Save money, sign up now,
Yeah,
get a free starter kit.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. We can, I can certainly ask.
yeah, thank you.
We have also expanded our organics collection, our drop-off collection. So we expanded it in, I think it was January 2024. So we have the bins at Rumford Ave, and those have been there since 2019. And then we expanded to have 3 of these cute little locking bins. There's one here at City Hall, and then there's one on Albemarle Road and one on Wheeler Road. And we have 769 people that have registered to use them since January 2024.
You need a code or something to get in, right?
Yes.
Like, you can't just go over and do it. That
Yes.
stopped me. I'm like,
I'm sorry.
too hard. I do.
The reason we keep it locked is to prevent it from getting used as a trash can.
I understand.
And it prevents, you know, the concept of animals getting into it. And then from the light registration process, we just get a little bit of data. So it just helps us understand what's happening with the program.
And you don't manage what's in the schools, right?
Um,
Do you consult on it?
say more.
If we're recycling and if we have organic pickup in the schools.
So I would say that DPW pays for trash and recycling dumpster collection at the schools. And then there are a handful of schools that have been interested in pursuing organics collection. And I think we're at 5 or 6 right now. Our big effort was this past fall where my division provided like the supplies and technical assistance to get food waste diversion, and I would say a ramped up effort of recycling in all of the kitchens in the schools. But I'd say there's a major lack of staffing bandwidth in order to make it happen in every cafeteria. So that's kind of the barrier that's being looked at, talked about right now. Next. So our street sweeping update. So we have a fair weather year-round sweeping program. Most squares are swept 3 times a week. The bike lanes are swept twice a week. Neighborhood streets are being swept every 2 to 3 weeks. In the fall, that can end up being more like 3 to 4 weeks. For equipment and technology, we have sensors on the brooms to track the number of road miles that we have swept. Our most recent purchase was a regenerative air vacuum sweeper, and that's deployed weekly, focusing on watershed areas, but also main streets. And then we are paying close attention to the MS4 permit requirements that are informing our operations. We're trying to contort what we do to earn as much credit as possible for reducing phosphorus. And I always like to talk about, there's just one part of the city that has a street sweeping parking ban, and that's in Nonantum. There's 7 streets where parking is banned for 4 hours in the month. And this became permanent in February 2023. So we do receive grant funds from Mass DEP. They have an interesting incentive-based program where so they tell us what policies are best practices that they would like to see municipalities put in place. And then you can earn credit based on meeting those criteria. And so we previously were getting upwards of $68,000 a year. And then in 2024, they made a big change to the program and essentially raised their bar, raised their threshold. And so we saw a drop in how much money we were bringing in. So it's been $52,000 for the last 2 years. What's unique about these grants is that they're eligible to spend on, it's like 3 pages worth of eligible expenditures. So like the school efforts that I was just describing, we use these grant funds to pay for any new bins that we need, supplies that the custodians need for advancing recycling efforts or advancing food waste diversion efforts. We also use it for a lot of education and outreach. We've also used it for project-based temporary staffing, like in the summer. And I've already explained that the grant criteria changed, which is why we've seen a drop in our grant funds.
Save the state money though.
Right. So we have had in the past these curbside service waste reduction efforts, but I guess what I'd like to point out is that the last major reform that the city did was in 2009, which is when the CART program was rolled out. And so for a while, over 15 years. And so at that time, it introduced the trash limit of 64 gallons. Before that, there was no trash limit. And it introduced like the overflow bag system. And I would say, what I've heard, I wasn't with the city at that time, but I've heard that it was met with a lot of animosity and, people don't like change, et cetera. But 15 years later, nobody bats an eye at it, and it's just like the norm. So I like to point that out. And then the last big change that we had was in February of 2020, right before the pandemic, coincidentally, that we had put in a collection fee for bulky waste and white goods. Before that, we had a limit of 5 bulky items per household per week for free. It was kind of crazy. So yeah, I guess I just like to point this out that we might be due for kind of a big shakeup to our program. And, we've talked about some of what those options could look like already. Next slide.
Mr. Donaldson? You have a question?
Yeah.
No?
Is he doing?
Oh, okay.
So I'll touch on our education and outreach efforts. So we have our Recycle by Newton app and website tool that is well used. We now have this annual sustainable materials management guide that we're sending out through our waste management contract. Our 311 system is used extensively for cart repairs, bulky items, and missed pickup requests. We do a water bill insert each summer, and then we went through an effort. It took us 4 summers, but we got every single recycling cart in the city decaled with the decal that you see on the right-hand side. And that educational material was all developed by the state, and we used one of their models and added a second language, just trying to make it as accessible as possible. Next slide. So we learned from our fall recycling audit that our contamination has ticked back up. So the last time that we had done an audit was in the 2018-2019 timeframe. And so in 2018, going back to talking about our contract rules a lot of like what we do and or what we put into the contract to try and formalize it as much as possible. At the time that there was this big shakeup with recycling, in our contract, there were 2 sentences that talked about recycling contamination and us facing excess charges. And so when the big shakeup happened, Waste Management came to us and they said, hey, we did an audit of your recycling, and now we're going to charge you this tremendous amount of money extra because your contamination was over the 10% threshold in our contract. We talked it over extensively with our law department and found that the language did not protect us from the way that Waste Management handled it. And so in the next contract that started in 2020, those 2 sentences expanded to 8 pages of definitions and descriptions and talking about audits and what they can't do and what they can do. And I protected us really well. I said, they can't do an audit on our material unless they give us 60 days notice. They did not do a single audit on our material during that time. And then, as I said, I fought very hard in our new contract to get charged for what we send them, because that's what we have control over. But on the flip side of that, what it has revealed is that our contamination and our wish cycling has ticked up significantly. The last audit that was done was in January of 2019, and we were at 9% contamination. And now in fall of 2025, we were at 22% contamination. As I said, we're in the middle of the second one right now. And the average between the fall audit and the spring audit is what will impact our pricing going into the next 6-month period before the next audit. So we expect to see some excess contamination charges, but I will say that they're not as steep and daunting as they were back before we defined it and sculpted out really well in our contract. But it's more money than we want to be paying. So what we intend to do this summer is to revisit what worked to bring our contamination down in 2018. So it's called the Recycling IQ program. It's where we get a team of people. It's like we had 5 or 6 of us that were going out to the curb previously. And we do curbside cart inspections. We give folks a warning, and we give them very specific feedback about what we see in their cart and what shouldn't be there. And then if we see the same material when we go back again, then we actually reject their cart. And so we need them to correct it in order for us to come back. So that's kind of the system, and it worked extremely well before. It went from, in 2018, we had the audit that Waste Management did without our notice was at 18%, and it took us 15 months, but we got it down to 9%. And during those 15 months, the excess contamination charges totaled $92,000. I have not done the math, but it could, over 15 months, it could take that long, or it could be about that same amount. But I'm very optimistic that we know how to address it now, and we can address it sooner and bring that down well before 15 months.
Counselor, Getz and then
You
Kelly.
answered my question.
Okay.
That-
Even with the decals, the contamination rate is still going up.
Yeah.
And what, is there a pattern to the type of contamination that you're seeing? The
So-
type of
so-
items that are.
So far, no. In the fall, I attended about half of the audits and my superintendent attended the other half, and this time we're kind of splitting it as well. I went to one this week on Monday, and it was, so one thing that's very interesting that I don't think was screened for in our previous audits, and again, it was before, what we were looking at was just contamination. So the previous audits, like process methodology, was just taking a pile of recycling and saying yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Now what we're doing is we're actually sorting it out by commodity. So we're taking a pile of 200 pounds of recycling and hand sorting it into cardboard, paperboard, mixed paper, aluminum, steel, tin cans, glass bottles, all these different categories. And so what we're finding in kind of doing this much more granular audit is that people putting their recycling into paper bags is causing a significant issue. Because here's what happens. The paper bag gets smushed, and all the material that needs to be loose to get sorted by the machinery at the facility gets trapped in the paper bag.
And invisible too.
And it's creating this like accordion style, like kind of cartoonish almost, like how I have a video that I just took on Monday of like holding one by the bottom upside down and nothing is coming out of it. So it just gives you the perspective of, oh, okay, this is actually a problem. And I will say this is brand new information to me. Like I had previously talked to folks at Waste Management and I had said, so what if folks put it in a paper bag? And they were like, we really want them to take it out and empty it out. And I'm like, I know, but what if they do it? And they were like, well, it's okay, you know, like it's just, and so I would tell folks individually when I would have conversations, I'd like, you're gonna get a C if you do that, but you'll get an A if you empty it out all the way. And now it's an F. So this is like,
Might even be okay materials, but they're just like in a way, put in a bag that you can't see and get crushed and they can't be recycled.
exactly.
And nobody knows that.
I didn't know
I
that.
didn't
I have no
So it was
idea.
not part of our education program, and now it's going to be
Yeah.
a central part of our education campaign for this summer.
But you,
Counselor Gordon?
You answered my question, because clearly the do not bag recyclables shows plastics, so that's hit home.
So
But
what we're
certainly
actually
not paper.
doing, this image is from Mass DEP. And what we're doing is taking the graphic designer that we worked with last summer for the guide, and DEP provides us with the raw image file. We're having our designer put a paper bag
Yeah.
in that image as well.
As well.
So it will be modified to be even more specific to our situation and our findings.
Counselor Albright and then Getz.
So, I know of a situation where they have an aide, it's an older couple,
Mhm.
they have an aide working for them. And I don't think this aide knows the rules. And the.
Housekeeping situations too, we've seen it for sure.
And my recycling bin doesn't have one of those stickers on it,
Oh,
and
okay.
neither does theirs,
Oh.
just share a driveway.
Well, we can definitely get that fixed.
Okay, so that would be good, because I don't think they just don't know what they're doing.
Mhm.
So I don't know how you fix that, but people who have aides need to have, those aides need to be educated.
Yeah, I think the best type of solution is just materials available in a lot of different languages. And we do have those available on the website. I would say the hard part is getting the right information, the right language information to the right person. I think many folks are not seeking out this information, and it's hard for us to, on a tailored basis, get the right information to the right people. So it's a tough problem to fix.
It is.
But I would say that hope that our curbside inspections and like rejections would again have it's some degree of like accountability that right now in the system isn't there.
Do you have the rules in various languages? Cause I'll be glad to give it to them.
We do, on our website, we have the list of kind of what we want in the recycling and what we don't want in the recycling in different languages. And there's like 4 or 5 different
Okay,
languages.
so I can print it.
Yeah.
Counselor Getz.
My only question was about the bags, like
Mm-hmm.
if you put like newspapers into a paper bag, I
Mhm.
would assume that's all in kind. All the same, material.
Yeah.
So paper with paper is okay.
So I got this question by the Sustainable Materials Management Commission and I said, let me get back to you. So I contacted Waste Management and what they said was, if folks are determined to do that, what we would ask them to do is rip the bag so that it at least falls out in the truck.
Could you even like just take a jute or rope and just tie the paper?
We definitely don't want that.
That would be worse. Okay.
That is worse.
So just papers?
That's what we want.
Okay.
So they know what it is.
Well, and then it's light and fluffy. So if you see the way that the machinery works, it's designed for everything to be very loose and kind of a lot of air in between. And they use a lot of machinery and technology to like gravity and air to separate things out into the right place. And so if there's not that fluffiness to it, then it doesn't get sorted into the right place.
Okay.
Counselor Donovan.
Here, I'm here.
Very good point.
Okay. He's in the.
Try now.
Thank you. Sorry, I wasn't allowed to unmute. I have several questions, but just on this point, what happens to contaminated recycling? Does Waste Management send it to Wheelabrator for incineration? Does it come back to us? What happens there?
Yeah, so it doesn't go to Wheelabrator after that. It essentially, they have their own process. I don't know officially where it goes from Avon, but Waste Management owns a landfill in Fitchburg, so it's possible that it's most economical for them to truck it from Avon to Fitchburg because that's a facility that they own. They also have control of a transfer station in Raynham, so that's possible. But essentially, we just pay for the contamination, but we don't have to handle it after that point.
So it gets handled by them, but the point is it doesn't get recycled
Correct.
effectively. Okay.
Yes.
And one comment on, since you're opening up the graphic design of this graphic question, in addition to adding a paper bag, I might consider where it says empty the contents into the cart, actually showing a paper bag with stuff falling out of it. I think that could help make it a lot clearer, so that even you don't need to be able to read it, to understand that that's the movement that you're supposed to do.
I agree with that. I think a lot of imagery is the direction that this campaign from DEP moved in after they did some research. And what we're also finding that's really positive, good news compared to 2018, 2019, when we had done kind of a deep dive into this, is we're seeing almost no plastic bags in the recycling. So it's a win. We just have a new problem. So I do think we can de-emphasize the plastic bag issue based on what we're finding.
All good? Okay. I got a few questions, quick ones. What about broken glass
Mhm.
and heavy things? So you're saying everything's light in there, but glass,
Glass is designed in the system to break, and it's the first thing that gets kind of pulled, like by weight, it gets dropped out in the very first part of the
so we
system.
don't worry about it, just put it in the,
Correct,
okay.
yeah.
Because I'm a little exasperated. I'm like, I thought we were doing such a good
You know, it's
job.
hard. It's
Not
very
recycling.
defeating feeling for sure.
Yeah.
But I can assure you, if you care and you're like moved by this, you're not the problem.
I am.
And I mean that, like, there's a lot of folks out there that are not tuned into this at all. They're not paying attention. Like, their trash looks like, oh, it could be trash or recycling, and their recycling looks like, well, trash or recycling. So that, like, that's the real problem.
We need scarlet letters for these people.
Yeah.
Our warning tag system is kind of like,
So, the language you said were on the website, is there anything that gets mailed to people?
so right now, we're just set, like, the first citywide mailing that we're doing is this guide that's only being sent out in one language, in English. And then we do a bill insert that is sent out to anyone who receives a water bill, usually in like late spring, early summer. So those are the things that we mail out right now.
So I don't know, to me, there's definitely an opportunity to have these translated into other languages.
Maybe like a QR code on what we send out for like finding a different language.
Yeah.
Online.
Okay, and then the timing of this IQ program, it seems like it's coming after the assessment. Is that right? Or am I off in my timing?
So it'll happen this summer. I mean, we really only do it in the summer months just because of weather.
Okay, so is that after they've already done the?
The second audit, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the second audit is happening right now. It'll end, I think it's scheduled to end March 31st. So we'll have information from the second audit.
Okay, but doesn't the audit affect pricing? So wouldn't you want to do the IQ before the audit?
I would say yes, but I would say summer is the first real opportunity that we would have to address this in a very holistic way that we know is really effective.
Okay.
As opposed to like, when the Recycling IQ program was developed, it was developed in Massachusetts and it's now gone nationwide. There was a research study done by a national nonprofit called the Recycling Partnership in conjunction with Mass DEP. And so there were 4 guinea pig communities that different methods were used, and then they did an assessment of like quality of recycling before and after. So by like just mailing out materials, they saw no improvement. So we know that the most effective thing that you can do is these like curbside inspections
People's trash and punish them.
and truly give them the like custom feedback for what they are doing wrong. Because that's part of the problem too, is like when folks get information about this, it just kind of sticks with them and they have an assumption that they're doing it right.
Mhm.
And it's very unlikely that they're going to tune in to new material if they're like, I'm not part of the problem. So that's what we're up against.
Okay, thank you.
I think I only have a couple of slides left.
Well, I'm just thinking about kids, because kids are a real good vector to educate the parents. You know, if you educate the kids,
Mhm.
you know, what recycling means, then they'll bring it home.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, the parents do it right.
I could not agree more with you. But trying to crack into our public schools and get them to prioritize things like that has proven not possible to my efforts in 10 years. Next slide. So we are in the process of developing a long-term plan. It probably doesn't have as comprehensive of a scope as I don't know, I would say other plans that I've seen, because we've already done this other work that of the couple of plans with recommendations that I was talking about before. So what the scope of this plan includes is really defined on the bottom. So it's determining the amount and type of waste generated by different sectors, so not solely focusing on residential. An evaluation of our resource recovery center and looking for ways that we can improve that. Looking at the commercial sector and making recommendations on what the city could do to try and reduce waste there, or divert more waste. There's a stakeholder engagement process planned, and looking at our contracts and understanding how strong or weak our language is, making sure that they're kind of up to speed on best practices. We will also be looking at organics, but I would say it's kind of a small factor in the scope of this project. Next slide. So just thinking bigger picture, I think this is my last slide. Newton is a statewide leader on advancing product stewardship laws. So I'm kind of nuts about this subject. So I chair the Massachusetts Product Stewardship Council and have for several years now. What product stewardship is referring to is the producers or manufacturers of these products that we're talking about that end up in the recycling stream. I think they should be the ones footing the bill, not us, and not taxpayers. And so this is happening in the US, and it's been happening elsewhere in the world for a number of years. But there's now 7 states in the US that have passed a law for the materials that go into recycling. It's called packaging and printed paper is like the scope, but packaging means like your yogurt container, the package that your yogurt came in. 7 states have passed it, including Maine. Said Maine was the first. And it's a complete reform and overhaul of the way things are done. It shifts the onus and the responsibility onto the manufacturers. And in some programs, municipalities, like in Colorado's program, municipalities won't pay anything. And access is given to every single resident for recycling. Which is it's a problem in Massachusetts. So like even what we were talking about, so some residential properties receive service from the city for trash and recycling, and other properties don't, and they may or may not be recycling. And we don't have a lot of proactive enforcement on that. So right now, Newton is involved with a Mass DEP waste reduction grant that was awarded to do a statewide education program to communicate to other municipalities about the benefits, the financial benefits that we could all be seeing if these laws were put in place here. Our state model resolution language for municipalities is based on Newton's resolution from 2022. And our goal this legislative session is to get EPR for batteries because it's it should be a slam dunk. There's just so much alignment and support behind it. And I always call going after packaging the big fish because we would save millions of dollars every year if we were to get that in place.
That's all right.
So going back to the VCOD, the zoning that hasn't been dealt with. So we have control, we wrote that the zoning and planning committee wrote that like ordinance. So if you would prefer that the ordinance say that anybody coming in under the VCOD has to be responsible for their own trash and recycling, you should let the council know that.
Yeah. Okay.
Because we can add that into that ordinance.
I think, so I don't know where this is defined, but I know that there was conversation that I was approached about maybe 2 or 3 years ago when something was getting reviewed. Maybe this is what you're talking about. I'm sorry, I'm not tuned into a lot of other things. I'm in my own little universe.
Yeah.
But I think there was a decision made that anything above 4 units was going to be required to have their own.
I'm not sure that made it into the ordinance.
Okay.
So maybe you could ask Nora to check that, or we
Okay.
could ask Nora to check that.
Okay.
And then if you want it there, if that's what you want, we can docket, you could docket it and we can make it go there.
Okay. I mean, I would definitely consider that a best practice for over 4 units to manage
Okay,
their own services.
okay, so you want us to check on that then?
Yeah, I'd be
Okay.
happy to be in touch and follow up with that.
Okay.
Great. So Gordon and Kelly.
Did you have something on this subject?
I did.
Okay, wait.
Oh, just to follow, I mean, I devil's advocate, but I think there's a downside to that in that it saves the city money. We don't have to pay for new people's trash removal, but on the other hand, we have no idea where it's going. We don't know. if
Oh,
it's
sorry.
going-
So you're talking about this, the like private hauler versus
Yeah.
city service. Okay.
Yeah, and you're saying, yes, you would like to see that in there, but it concerns me that then. Who knows what's happening with that? How much of organics, is anything being recycled? We lose, I mean, from an environmental perspective, we really
Mhm.
lose accountability for where that's all going. I understand the concern over the taxpayers worried about not paying for trash removal for all this new overdevelopment. I think that's where it kind of came from. But I just want to raise that because who knows where it's going when it's being disposed of privately.
Yeah, I guess I would counter just that it is a regulated industry. So like a hauler has to be permitted with Mass DEP that they are taking things to the right place. And then they also get permitted with the city. So there is
Okay.
some degree of oversight of that. And then I would go back to, for dumpster service, we don't get any information about how much material is going out there. So like even in our own dumpster collections, like dumpster pickups from City Hall, I don't know how many tons are in that. It could be an empty dumpster if the City Hall was closed the day before or
How
something
much
like
is
that.
solid waste? How much is cardboard? How much
Yeah.
is organics? That
Yeah,
could have been,
we don't
compost. We
have-
have no idea.
We don't have any of that information for dumpster service. So like any large property
Yeah.
would typically have that.
Okay, that's all I wanted to say, because it concerns me a little.
Counselor Gordon?
Thank you. I was wondering, the HelpSee, the textile, is that under you and has that made an impact and do people seem to know about?
Yeah,
What
that's
to
a
do
good
with their
question.
textiles?
So, we do have textile collection at Rumford Ave, and that falls under the city contract, or city agreement with HelpSee. And then HelpSee also provides curbside pickups by request, and that's also under the city's purview. And then all of the bins that are at the schools are in an agreement separately with the school district, but I do get the data on that. So, we collect a lot of textiles, like, I mean, way more than we ever thought we would, and it's been a really successful program. I guess, probably to answer your question, we don't have the one-to-one data of like, oh, we now divert all of these textiles into these bins, and oh, it used to go into the trash, because it was probably some or most of that was going to other places like Goodwill or like other donation sites, but in the end, there's plenty of textiles, and like, as long as you make it convenient for folks, they're gonna come out of the woodwork, so there's plenty to go around. We're not putting nonprofits out of business because of it.
Didn't we pass something where you're not allowed to put textiles in our trash anymore?
Yeah,
Is
so
that-
that in 2022, Mass DEP made it a waste ban item, so that it's not supposed to be disposed of in trash.
And two other follow-ups.
Mhm.
What are we supposed to do with batteries? Cause I never know, I have a big thing of batteries.
You can bring them down to Rumford Ave, and
Okay,
we take all types of batteries now.
okay.
We used to not take alkalines, and it was confusing, and then we're like, we're just gonna take alkalines, totally
Oh,
fine. And so
So
that's,
not in your recycling, but bring it to rubber.
yes, do not put it in your curbside recycling or your trash, bring them down to Rumford Ave.
Okay, and then last question is, I don't know how many people saw Ruth Ann with somebody in your department going through what's allowed in your recycling and what isn't.
We gotta get Mark to do that.
But it was, yeah, I'd have to say, if we put some QR codes, and Mark did do that, I learned a lot actually
Mhm.
watching that. So it might be something visual that people, even if they don't understand what Mark is saying. I think I learned about the milk cartons that way.
Mhm, yep.
So,
And that was a change that was made in
Things
2018.
change,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly, yeah.
Okay, Counselor Maliki and then Donaldson.
Yeah, on the question about the VC projects collection. I'm not even sure that's a zoning thing. If we have a cutoff of 4 units, why not just use the same cutoff that we use for the rest of the city?
So we don't have a cutoff of 4 units in our trash and recycling ordinance.
Hmm.
And that's where I would say a lot of haziness is created by the way that the language is in the current ordinance. It would make things much more clear cut if we defined number of units and it becomes much more black and white, but it would be a big shakeup of what the current system is.
And there's also an issue of like how much sort of curb space there is in relation to the number of units.
Mm.
Do they have to be consolidated just because there's not enough curb space for like 8 units to put out 16
Or
barrels?
25.
Or 25,
Yeah.
50 or whatever,
I
yeah.
would say right now, we don't, so to my knowledge, we don't have anything that defines that, like what you're talking about. And sometimes you do pass by a curb line that's just all carts because of the number of units and because that property didn't have a special permit and therefore we provide service to them. And I would say some of these larger properties, I would prefer to be providing dumpster service to them, but they don't have the space and are unwilling to use parking space, and we have never pushed or forced that issue, so that's.
That clearly could be part of our zoning regulations.
Yeah.
I mean, that clearly
They
we
would
could
have to
add,
provide
Mhm.
space for a dumpster.
yeah, I mean, that we could do that.
Yeah.
If that's what you want.
Let's talk about.
Yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah.
Counselor Donaldson?
West,
Thank you. Yeah, so this I do have several questions. But I'm going to start with the one that I have about VCOD that we were just talking about, which was, would it, and it sounds like maybe you were kind of getting at this, would it be possible to allow projects within the VCOD to basically just pay for their own share of, be under the waste management contract, but pay for their own share of it?
There is a model that exists like that. We just don't have, we don't have anything set up for it. There's nothing that would prevent us from doing that, though. Like I said, it would essentially be some type of like cost share system.
Okay, I'm just thinking that kind of gets to Counselor Kelly's point of like, then we would know what's happening with it, and it would create, one system, maybe a system that also makes it more affordable for those projects. And on that point, I'm kind of wondering if we would then also consider making it, for projects with a certain level of affordability, perhaps 100%, would we be willing to cover that cost so that we're not adding an operating cost to a otherwise, a building that's aiming for a high level of affordability. Which is kind of a bigger picture question, I guess, for my colleagues. Could can I ask a few more?
Yeah,
So-
sure.
Okay, great. Going way back, were there other respondents to the waste collection RFP, and if so, how many? If you feel comfortable telling us.
I mean, that is public information. So there were 2 other proposers for our hauling services. I would say one of those proposals we took seriously or was competitive with the waste management proposal. And it was considered, but we had interviews with each of the proposers, these 2, and we kind of found out that so I'll backtrack even more, and I hadn't brought this into the conversation, but we tried to go out for a joint contract with Brookline for this RFP. And what we had said was that if proposers wanted to apply, they had to submit for both communities. And so this other proposer, when talking to them, they're Brookline, at the time they were Brookline's current service provider, and they were like, we just don't want to lose Brookline, but we really can't take you guys on. And so their pricing was not as advantageous to us, but was more advantageous to Brookline, and vice versa with waste management. So it ultimately did not work out, and we both stuck with our same vendors. And I think overall everyone was happy because the vendors didn't lose either of their contracts, and the competitive process brought the pricing down for both municipalities. So it didn't work the way that I envisioned it working, but it still panned out. Maybe another time.
That's very helpful to know, because I am also kind of curious about how this sort of negotiation with 36 municipalities works for the disposal. But you don't need to get into that right now. Looking at the graph that you showed, and also a document that I was sent a few months ago by the SMMC, what is this?
Oh yeah, Sustainable Materials Management Commission.
Yes, thank you for having it at the tip of your tongue. I'm conscious of the fact that, as you pointed out, our waste really has not reduced meaningfully, I guess, since the bins kind of came into play. But the other factor there is that we're not seeing it like kind of averaged on a by household kind of annual by household. And I'm wondering if that would be something that at some point in the near future, if we could start tracking as well, because our population and our number of households does change, and maybe will continue to. And so having that as a data point would be helpful to know. We might still be going up, but if it's less by household, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I try to put data together like that. The problem is that we don't end up with a really solid number, and especially with household numbers fluctuating, of who we provide service for. We don't have an exact number, and it's partially because we don't have any type of administrative requirement for the households that participate in the program to have like registered with the city at any time. And so what happened in 2009 when the entire CART system was rolled out, at that time it was screened through for anyone who had a special permit and did not receive service, and otherwise everyone received a CART. And so we had this like master list of household units at that time. And then ever since then, if someone calls and says, oh, hey, we're a new unit, we have a certificate of occupancy, it's 2 units, it used to be 1, like, there's no database that's like tracking all of that. And so we don't have a firm number at all, but we don't have firm year-to-year changes of households served. We kind of just use an estimate overall.
But presumably Waste Management would know how many households they're serving.
You would think that, but they don't either. And it goes back to, again, like, we don't feed them like a database of customers. And what they do is they drive the routes, they drive the streets, they pick up the carts that are out. They don't have a number of like stops.
They'll check it off.
I see.
If it's a 2-family, a 4-family, or a single.
Yeah,
Got it.
Whatever's out there.
yeah. It sounds kind of crazy, right? But it's like in a system, so like Brookline, for example, they have a very, like, their residents pay an annual fee and opt into their trash program. And so they have a database of who's participating and they know the fluctuations annually, but we just don't have any type of tracking like that.
I see. Okay, that's helpful to understand. I guess if a way of understanding that becomes easily possible, it would be helpful to understand.
I definitely want that data too. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I've
can
been looking at
imagine.
it for a number of years trying to figure it out.
And kind of on the topic of how do we effectively reduce waste, I'm curious to know, do you think, I understand that your role tonight is kind of presenting us options, but I'm curious to know, do you think that like introducing a municipal composting at the same time as a transition to smaller bins, for example, combining 2 of those things, would that kind of help achieve our next step in waste reduction, or does having those actions disaggregated make more sense, or what do you think about that?
I would say it would make the most sense both in a logistical manner. It's obvious, it's like a lot of work to make multiple changes at once, but it's almost better to just like rip the Band-Aid off and make a big change at one time instead of having multiple big changes. And it's easier to communicate to the public that, oh, hey, we're reforming the system. There is essentially a service decrease by your cart size getting cut in half, but oh, we're adding this other service. So the material that is currently going into your trash that is 33% could now go into this bin. So I think that would be I think that's a great next step in waste diversion, is some type of holistic reform. And as I said before, like offering a reduction in service, but a new service, or some kind of trade-off between the 2 would be welcomed.
Understood. Thank you. Yeah, anecdotally, I have chickens, so most of our organic matter goes to the chickens. But in the periods when we haven't had chickens or haven't been doing our own composting, I totally see that waste drastically increase in the bin, and then but now we kind of use almost like a fifth of our bin, if that, on a weekly basis. In the topic of municipal composting, how does that work? Like, do we get any of that compost back? If so, is there an advantage at the municipal level to us that people can then go get compost for free from Rumford or something like that?
I'm not aware of an arrangement right now like that, but I would say it's certainly something that could be negotiated or discussed.
Composters get one free bag.
Black Earth does it.
Right now, that's true. Like, customers of Black Earth receive a free bag of compost in the spring. But on a larger scale, what you're talking about is like, maybe we receive some amount of compost back that could be used in parks or distributed to residents or something like that.
Something along those lines. Yeah. I was just kind of curious. And then this is my last point, but kind of going back to that set of SMMC recommendations, many of these you've touched on already, but I just kind of want to give them a little bit of airtime, which was that they were adopt a targeted specific waste reduction goal, address comprehensive waste reduction in Newton's emerging plan, strengthen sustainable materials management division support, implement a citywide curbside organics collection program, which we've discussed, and amend the recycling and trash ordinance with a fee-based variable rate system, which I think was about, providing for free smaller bins and larger bins on a fee-based system. So, some of those I think we've discussed in a lot of ways, and I just wanted to make sure that they all got mentioned and got some airtime. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Donovan. All right, so Councilor Gordon gets, and then what I'd like to do is move on, because I know we have another presentation and another item, so let's do that.
So this is probably for discussion when we start talking about having smaller bins, but I just wanted to raise that I live in a two-family neighborhood, and almost everybody in our two-family neighborhood, they get 4 bins, right? Each unit.
Two trash, two recycling.
Right, so 4 total,
Mhm.
but almost everybody only uses 2. So most people use those big bins, but they're sharing them. And so I just think we have to be really thoughtful about that, when we're talking about maybe changing the system, because, and it may even be more units where people are not assigned certain bins and they're combining them. So that information that Councilor Donovan asked about, which is too bad we don't have, which is,
Mhm.
if you're looking at a 2-family house and they're using the same amount of waste as a single family house, then that is a data point. And the only other question, which I had meant to ask earlier, is do we track food waste, like from the schools? And what we're doing with that? And do we look to divert it? Do we send things to pantries? Do we?
Mostly no. So there have been some efforts over the years, particularly led by student groups, to try and do like a waste sort. So like an audit of the composition of like one day's worth of cafeteria waste. We actually just did one this year in Newton North in February. And I would say that the data is very telling. I mean, out of the cafeteria, it was something like 90% of the stuff that was in the trash could have been composted. Especially with the schools moving to compostable materials, like the boats and the utensils are all compostable. But right now we don't have a holistic system, and I would say the biggest barrier that I see after having worked on this for 10 years of being with the city, is that we don't have a policy, we don't have the kind of leadership and the top-down buy-in that we really need to get support for that system. And I would say several of us that I work with have been trying to raise that. I know the Sustainable Materials Management Commission recently sent a letter to the new school committee, and the superintendent on that exact subject. But I've certainly seen improvements and progress and interest, but still not that kind of leadership, prioritization, like deciding this is how our building works now. That is not happening.
I just wanted to follow up. Are small bins available now?
Yes.
And so it would be able to function with the existing pickup?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know. So I would just have to go to Rumford and make the request, or?
Oh, no, you can put it in on 311 and we can swap your bin out and it'll happen like within 2 weeks.
All right, and then is there any sort of adaptive kind of setup so that then you could actually weigh what's getting dumped? Is there like a mechanism or a way that we could start tracking, just in terms of
Like on a per household basis.
Correct. Yeah.
I know that technology exists. I think it would have to take place like at the time that we change a contract, because it would require either new trucks or adaptations to the existing trucks that I'm sure would have some costs associated with them. I know the technology exists. I know Grand Rapids, Michigan literally charges people based on the weight of their trash. And like they get a bill, like their sewer bill, for how much of the system they're using.
Because it would be great to know how many pickups you're doing at a specific property, but then also to quantify it and then make people pay for their trash.
Councilor Albert.
Can I just make a vote about immediately? Just thinking about the schools, their big problem is educating the kids.
Mhm.
And the fights that we have about enough teachers and so forth, I think buses is probably the next one down the run. Food recycling is probably way down here in terms of, do they have any energy left to spend on it? And I'm wondering if we can help them when it comes to budget time. Is there some way that we can help the schools? And I know we don't have any extra staff either, but I don't think they're gonna spend much time worrying about it because it's so low down on their priority list. So we need to think about how to help them. And I'm happy to talk to you about that because I don't think they're gonna ever do it. They don't have the time and money. They're worried about teaching the kids,
Yeah.
so it's important, and I just wanna help you figure out how to get to them to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it would need to be some degree of staffing commitment. I mean, there's other districts, I would say kind of peer districts, Cambridge, Lexington, Brookline, that have made significant investments in this area by adding staff. Either to DPW or to the schools. I would advocate for the schools because there really needs to be more ownership from within those buildings. But all of those districts, the other thing that they have in common is that there is a district-wide policy that is what they will do. They commit to separating out their trash, their recycling, and their compostables. And oftentimes it aligns with like their climate action plan or again, some other like higher level city goal. That I see being very viable here. It just does need to get the airtime and the bandwidth, and I know that it's going to always compete with many other issues
Yeah.
for bandwidth.
So I don't wanna take up any more time, but maybe at another time we can talk in more depth about that. Sorry.
So this is great. I'm looking for a motion to NAN. However, this was a great discussion. I fully anticipate that people will docket items that relate to this. So feel free. I think we should dive into a lot of these areas. But Ms. Draper, this was fantastic. Thank you.
I can talk about stuff all night, so.
So could we, I guess.
Switching places.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So is there a motion?
Yep.
Okay, Counselor Jetson. Counselor Jetson, moved NAN on this.
Yes.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The extensions? Okay, that's unanimous. All right, so Mr. Fitzgerald, you have a high bar.
Yes, I do.
Item 106-16, overview of the Utilities Division. Councilor Kalis of the Gets requesting an overview and discussion of the Department of Public Works Utilities Division. For the budget process. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Much smaller presentation than one year's, but still packed with lots of good information.
Great.
So this is a presentation on the Public Works, Water, Sewer, and Stormwater divisions of the Utilities Division. Next slide. So the utilities overview, we manage 3 of the city utility systems. The water system, which serves about 30,000 customer meters. The distribution system, maintenance and capital upgrades, and the NWRA Regional Water Supply Partnership. In the sewer system, we manage the wastewater collection and conveyance systems, the pump stations and system rehabilitations, and also the NWRA Sewer Treatment Partnership. The third utility is the stormwater system, which encompasses the drainage infrastructure, which includes flood mitigation and environmental compliance with the NIPD's permit. Next slide. So we'll start off with the water division. Program responsibilities are our water main maintenance, leak detection, service installation and repairs, and capital project support. The budget basically has 3 cost centers. The operational budget, which has 24 employees. We do the project design, materials, and equipment out of that budget. We address water leaks, installation repairs, service requests from that. The largest component is the actual cost of the water we purchase from the NWRA, and of course the debt service payment. So those 3 categories make up our total budget. Next slide. A little bit about what's going on in the water division. Ongoing plan to investigate, replace, repair, clean, and line water systems. We're in year 14 of a 20-year program to rehab our water mains. We do about $5 million worth of work each year. Depending on different streets, we evaluate the older pipes, unlined pipes, leak prone, pipes prone to leakage. We're coming to an end on our water meter replacement program. We've been at this for a little over 2 years. We have about 1,133 left to replace. Around 889 of them have service line issues where there needs to be an upgrade or some work prior to us to be able to install a new meter. So we're working through those issues with that. The balance of those meters, the 1133, are large commercial meters. We're having a final push on that. Our contract with our vendor is going to expire in July, so we should have a good portion of the meters that are able to be replaced done by that time. Some other large water projects. The second phase of Ward Street, which is a large 20-inch water main that feeds our reservoir, is being replaced in conjunction with the MWA installing a new 30-inch line on Ward Street. So we've piggybacked with them in their contract to get some economy of scale and cost and quite frankly, disruption for the neighborhood. So it's a very disruptive project that's well underway. Onto some system maintenance. Last year we started a hydrant flushing program, which forces water through the system in a certain pattern, directionally flowing it to clean the lines of any debris over time. It's recommended to do that for water quality. So we've gone through everything south of Route 9, and we'll continue this on each year annually. We'll get around the city. So hasn't been done in quite some time. The first time through, there's some problems we find. We make some repairs. So it's part of a bigger ongoing maintenance program. So it's not just the flushing; it also exposes some problems that we may not know. Yeah, so that's ongoing. Hydrant maintenance. We actually inspect all the hydrants annually for function, find any repairs, make those, some replacement. Water infrastructure repair and maintenance. Those are the leaks that come in daily. We do a leak detection program. We check the entire system, which we want to find those and repair those as soon as possible, so that we're not buying water and not selling it. And the lead and copper rule compliance is a DEP requirement that in 2000, a year ago, we had to identify any of the potential lead services that were remaining in, or services that had prior lead components to them. We have about 144 of those services that have been identified to be replaced. We have a program going out, so we'll replace them similar to what the city did in 2017 with the full lead service replacement. So there's a program where the resident can apply, have the service done, and pay for it over a 10-year period payback. Next
question.
Yes.
So leak detection is not for homeowners, correct?
Correct.
Okay, because they should be able to go onto their app and see what they're using on a daily basis. That's what I do.
Internally, yes. The resident is required to maintain the service line from the street to the meter. So sometimes our leak detection will detect a leak on a service. So we'll address that with the homeowner. So anything outside the building we can usually find because we listen for it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But internally, that's on the homeowner.
And then hydrant flushing or maintenance, you don't need to alert residents nearby, is that right?
We usually do, we put a notice out because we do it, it does disturb some water. You're gonna get some cloudy water on some of the operations. So we're actually moving water through a pipe. Might not be the direction it flows all the time. We want to directionally flow it. We want to increase the velocity of the pipe, actually scour the materials that are the sediment that's settled in there, or any organic stuff that might be going on in there. You want to rip that off the sides of the pipe.
Okay.
So there are, we notice, we put notices out when we do that. And
Good.
so we do have some water quality issues when that happens. Any other questions on this? Next slide. This is a list of streets we did under our water main replacement program last year, with the only caveat is Church Street is still being underdone. That'll be the last one that's done from carryover from last year. And we will have another set of streets to be advertised and bid when that street is complete.
Councilor Albright?
So you said you're in the 14th year of a 20-year plan.
Yes,
Are we gonna make the 20-year plan? Are we gonna get there?
yes,
We will. Okay.
it's a 20-year plan that will probably renew itself.
Well, we start again. I would assume that, but we're gonna get everything done once within the 20 years.
That's our plan, we get there.
Okay.
Obviously, over time since that started, the dollars don't equate to the same linear feet of pipe.
Well, that's why I'm asking the question. Are we gonna get there, do you think?
It's never gonna be done, but we're making progress every year.
Okay, so we're not gonna get there. Right here, we're not gonna get there probably. They get everything the first time within the 20
I don't
years.
think it was designed to get to every pipe in the first 20 years. It's to address the older infrastructure above in that list there. Most of those pipes were close to 100 years old or older. So.
So we'll address all the big,
Address
the
the
major
unlined
problems.
older pipes. Some of the streets, like Wells Ave, that was a problem that got stuck in there because there was a problem with the pipe itself. So as those come up, we'll address those, but our main concern is unlined older pipes.
Councilor Getz?
My only question is just even in terms of process. So is you physically dig up the road and then you relay the pipe?
Yes,
So it's actually truly is it PVC piping or what?
ductile line,
Which is,
ductile line, it's an iron pipe
okay.
that's used for water
What
service.
is the diameter?
Typically, we want to put an 8-inch pipe in. Lots of times the smaller pipes are 6-inch or smaller. We upgrade everything to an 8-inch for fire service.
So when all of this is done, you're literally just working down the road.
In the past, we've done some cleaning and lining, and some pipes we'll look at it, and it might just need to be cleaned out. They actually make a connection of a section of pipe, take it out of service, run an auger through it to clean all the scales off it, and line it with concrete. So that's a process that's still done too. But all these streets are actually, it's physically, the pipes were replaced. The next division is the sewer division. Responsibilities are sewer maintenance, pump station operation, sewer rehabilitation projects, and the illicit discharge detection. Next slide. Again, there's 3 components to this budget. There's the operating expense, which has 30.5 full-time employees, project design materials and equipment for maintaining that. The MWRA sewer assessment fee we pay for the water we send there to be treated, and the debt service on the budget. So that's those 3 components that make up that large budget. In 2026, we have an I&I program. We're in the 11th phase of that, the investigation. What that does, we videotape each line and look for leaks, look for inconsistencies, problems, failures, and we address those by closing the leaks, realigning the pipes. It could be some lining, it could be excavation, point excavation to replace pipes, it could be replacing a whole sewer line. So those that's designed to reduce the amount of infiltration. So if the pipe's broken and it's groundwater is infiltrating into it, we're sending groundwater to MWA to be treated at a fee, at a cost. So the idea is to find those leaks, fix them, and it's a way of going through your system too, to make sure it's working properly. Along with that, that addresses the pipes in the system. The pump stations are another integral part of it, where actually the water's conveyed there, it's pumped up to the next place where it's gonna eventually get out of the city. So the city has 10 pump stations. We're in the second construction phase of that. There was a study done a few years ago, came up with a 10-year plan to address some of the needs to maintain those stations. We're in the second phase, it's construction phase. The third phase, design, is starting now. So those include some identified maintenance issues in the pump stations. And the third item there is to continue with the sewer illicit discharge detection and elimination program. What that finds, that's looking for any sewer that's still connected to the drain, or we sample our stormwater to make sure there's no sewer in it. So we've gone through, we've done all the major connections of that. We're down one of the minor ones. So we've made great progress on that program. We find those, identify them, and make the repairs. Next, please. The third division is the stormwater. The responsibilities are the drainage system, the maintenance on that system, catch basin cleaning, stream and culvert maintenance, and regulatory compliance. Next. Again, this is our budget. In 26, the budget had two components: the operating budget, which carries 11 personnel, and the debt service. Some of the projects in this division are a phosphorus control alternative schedule. We're required by EPA to remove a very large amount of phosphorus from our drainage system. We're in contact with the EPA, working on an alternative schedule to meet their goals and so where that's in the works.
You feeling good about it? Or is there no feeling yet? About an alternative?
EPA today, it went fairly well.
Okay.
We have some work to do on our end.
It's unique because we're the first region to actually come under this compliance. So we're the first people to actually ask for an alternative schedule. So there's a learning curve on their side and ours.
They thanked us for being their guinea pigs, so.
Oh, that's good.
So more to come on that, I'm sure, in the future. Update the stormwater infrastructure improvement plan. We have a grant to do that. We'll look at all of our infrastructure and update it from those things in 2015 the last time. Identify it, and we'll actually use that to look at future planning for projects. Burles Pond Dam design and engineering. I don't think everyone here is very familiar with that. We also have a culvert and stream cleaning item that was added to our budget last year. So we're looking at some of the streams and culverts that need attention. Handle some of the smaller projects within our budget. And that's what we're doing. Our annual catch basin cleaning, we've changed that from doing each basin every other year to now we're cleaning every basin every year. There's also a hydrological study of the Cheesecake Brook. We have a grant for that. To look at it.
I don't think it was a grant. I think it was funding from.
Oh, you're right. We weren't successful in the grant. It actually was from the correct, stand corrected. To do a study on Cheesecake Brook. To identify there's some issues with that, with a pipe that runs through there. And the other line which is actually blocking that culvert, which is causing a restriction.
Which color?
Water Street.
Water Street.
That's what I wanted you to say that. I have to. Sorry.
So once that's done, we can move forward on getting that problem solved or addressed. And lastly, the National Pollution Discharge Elimination Permit. We're in year 7 of that permit. That's the regulatory requirements for all of our stormwater issues through the city. I know that was quick, a lot of stuff, but
Good.
any other questions?
Counselor Getz?
Just a quick question about, I know that some of the culverts, it's MWRA, and you have to figure out who is responsible. You know, and that it seems like it's the sort of the interfacing of both systems, and it's like, that's the first piece that needs to be figured out, you know, in terms of like who is the responsible party. But there's the culvert systems are so old, some of them I go and I look at them, and there's some of them are beautiful because they're stone, you know, but they're yesteryear, you know, in the sense of, and I just don't know, you know, whether or not they can be approved. It looked like you were budgeting to go after them more actively so that they were more functional. And I know one specific one that, you know, that it's actually a retrofit, you know, in terms of making them long-term more functional. But that's the kind of, you know, like, for me, it sort of seems as if you're approaching it the right way, you know, that you're actually trying to improve them and, you know, improve their functionality. But it sort of seems like you're the first piece is figuring out who is responsible for those older systems.
That will come out through the
Asset plan.
right.
What?
The stormwater asset,
Asset-
yeah,
asset
plan
plan.
update.
And
Okay,
then visit every structure,
okay.
assess it.
And when is, because that's in process right now?
Yes.
It's a consultant that's been hired. So you will then come to us like in 6 months?
Completed in 2027, I believe.
Oh.
I can resend, I presented on this, I believe,
Yes.
a few months ago.
Okay, so it's a
So I
ways
can-
out.
It is a little ways out, but it will give us a 20-year capital improvement
Okay.
plan for those
Okay.
culverts, streams.
Yeah, yeah, well, there's a whole network of them, you know. Many streams go through people's yards, you know.
Those are the ones that we're addressing internally. We've
Okay.
put some funding in for that to address those now,
Mhm.
as opposed to looking at the long 20-year, 10-20-year plan.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
I've got a huge network in Ward 5, you know, we all feed down to the river.
Counselor Gordon?
I'm just kind of curious, because I know there's a few constituents, myself included, that do have problems with sewage coming up back into homes when there's big storms. And
Have they contacted us
yes, I think when that happens, I'm just wondering,
during a storm?
yeah, when there's often a lot of rain, especially when there's flash flooding.
Sewerage?
On lower,
Sewerage?
no, it's
Drainage?
sewage, not
Hmm.
black water, it's sewage.
I'd like to know what that is.
Okay, so I'll chat with you
Reach out.
afterwards, yeah, I've been told it's because the streets are lower, and so I will talk.
The system should be separate.
Yeah, this,
If it's sewage, that's a problem.
Okay, Yeah.
It's not a problem, it's a problem either way, but
It's a
it's more
problem.
concerning if it's sewage.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
let's meet and,
I will do, I will contact you.
that's what the
offline. Thank you.
IDD program is for, to find that and eliminate those connections. So
Oh,
there's-
okay.
Yeah.
All right, because my neighborhood in particular has some
Okay.
issues.
okay,
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
okay then, Counselor Malky.
I've been hearing about both for years, but I'm still not clear on the difference between NIPD's and the phosphorus controllers. Is phosphorus a sort of an outgrowth of NIPD's?
It's a requirement of the NIPD's permit
within it.
program, yes, it lives within that.
Okay.
All right, short and sweet. Oh, Counselor Bellavette?
Yeah, just one quick one. Thank you. I believe that I had been told at some point that we actually remove less phosphorus than some of our neighboring communities. Is that true, or can you help me understand that?
We have a bigger phosphorus load to reduce. I don't know what other communities have done versus us. There's no comparison like that, but we're the second largest. We have the second largest goal to remove.
I see. Okay, so maybe what I had heard was relative to that.
Behind Boston, but it's considerable.
Wow.
It's,
Okay.
much considerable to.
Over 1,000 pounds, I think, other communities are in the 40-pound range, 60-pound range.
Yeah.
It's a significant difference.
Because of how much frontage we have along the Charles River, right?
Yep. Right.
So I think that I would ask if we're gonna deep dive into the phosphorus, that we come back and give a presentation, because it is a very complicated discussion.
So that rumor is not true, Cyrus.
Understood. Yeah, that's helpful for me to understand that we have such a high sort of load to manage. So that's great. Thank you.
It's based upon the river, Charles River is basically surrounds us.
Yeah.
We do look at every opportunity to reduce it and remove it. But there's a lot to be done on that.
So similarly, NAN would be nice on this one, but you know, on the phosphorus or on anything else, people are welcome to docket items, and they'll come back and dive deeper into those, so. All right, so Councilor Kelly has motion to NAN. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, any no's, any abstentions? All right, let's begin this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Farrell. Okay, last item.
Enjoying them?
Yes, please do.
Wait, one more.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So item 61-26, request for a financial, technical, and safety assessment of Actibump Solutions. Councilor Silver, Kalis, Farrell, Bixby, Greenberg, Oliver, Malachi, Lucas, Albright, Irish, and Block requesting discussion about the potentially for using the Actibump solution to supplement or replace speed tables in Newton for traffic calming and reduction of speeding. Commission, that's right.
So good evening, everyone. DPW have conducted an initial review of this technology. While it's certainly a very innovative concept, our assessment raises several important concerns, particularly related to the regulatory compliance, safety, and long-term operations. First, from a regulatory standpoint, this technology is not currently recognized under the Federal Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, or the MUTCD. There's no established federal guidance for speed-activated roadway surfaces, and there are no standardized signs or markings in the US for this type of device. As a result, implementing the Actibump would require a formal request to experiment through the Federal Highway Administration, along with ongoing monitoring and reporting requirements. This is not a standard traffic calming measure. It would be considered an experimental deployment in the United States. It's also important to note that, to our knowledge, this technology has not been adopted for use on public streets by US municipalities. From a safety perspective, US roadway design is built on predictability and consistency. Drivers and roadway users rely on knowing what to expect. Actibump introduces a dynamic condition where the roadway surface changes in real time depending on vehicle speed. That is fundamentally different from the static devices like speed tables. Our primary concern is with two-wheeled users, bicycles, motorcycles, scooters, and so forth, e-bikes. A sudden vertical drop in the roadway presents a higher risk of loss of control, particularly if the device is activated unexpectedly, or if a two-wheeled vehicle were passing over the Actibump at the same time as a speeding motor vehicle. The Actibump could present a significant safety risk to riders of two-wheeled vehicles. This could in turn represent a liability risk to the city. Proper use of traffic control devices that are approved, accredited in the MUTCD, designed and installed with appropriate professional engineering standards of care, provide a measure of liability protection for the city. this would not be the case for Actibon. There are also broader concerns about how unfamiliar drivers, especially at night or in poor weather, would interpret and respond to the devices. Overall, this introduces a higher consequence risk profile than traditional traffic calming. From a financial standpoint, while the initial installation costs may appear competitive, in some cases, the life cycle costs are significantly higher. Unlike speed tables, which are passive infrastructure, Actibon requires mechanical systems, electrical power, heating elements, and software monitoring. It also requires ongoing maintenance and has an expected service life of approximately 10 to 12 years. By comparison, speed tables are relatively simple, durable, and inexpensive to maintain. So from an asset management perspective, this is a much more complex resource-intensive system. Winter operations are particularly important consideration for Newton. While the system has been used in Scandinavian climates, it requires heating elements and additional attention during snow and ice conditions. There may also be periods where the system needs to be deactivated. That raises concerns about reliability, consistency, and the operational burden on our crews, especially during the times of year when roadway safety is already most challenging. Another point is that there is currently no US-based data demonstrating the safety effectiveness of this technology. It is not included among FHWA's safety countermeasures, and there are no established crash modification factors. That makes it difficult to quantify the benefit or compare it directly to proven treatments like speed tables or raised crossings, which have well-documented performance data. With respect to emergency response, there may be some theoretical advantages if vehicles are traveling at compliant speeds. However, there is no US data on how the system interacts with emergency vehicles operating under real-world conditions. So at this point, the impacts remain uncertain for us. This is an emerging technology that has not yet been standardized or widely adopted in the United States. DPW's view is that while it may be appropriate for controlled pilot testing in a larger city, it is not something we would recommend employing broadly at this time. Our recommendation is to continue relying on proven traffic calming measures that are compliant, well understood, and effective. At the same time, we will monitor developments, particularly if larger US cities begin testing this technology under a formal federal framework. If and when there is a clear regulatory guidance and demonstrated safety performance, we would revisit deploying Actibon. At this time, it presents higher risk, greater complexity, and insufficient evidence to support deployment in the city of Newton. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. It's very extensive.
That's clear.
I spent a lot of time.
Can that go into the record? Like, can we submit that? That was very detailed. Any questions? So I have a question. So this hasn't been tested in the United States at all?
I couldn't find it anywhere. I Googled, I did everything I could to find this because I'd love to have the data.
Yeah.
It's not that we're opposed to this. It is just not something that is proven. And we usually rely on proven technology to ensure that we're getting the best value and the safest.
Okay. Councilor Dunlap?
Yeah, my question was just, were you able to figure out how much one active bump call costs?
I think the install cost was about 150,000, but that didn't take into account the maintenance
Got
and
it. And
heating elements and electricity that would be
and
required.
approximately how much does one speed bump cost?
Just a speed bump, probably 20 to 25,000. It depends on whether it impacts the drainage on the street. That
Got it.
cost varies greatly.
Okay, thank you. I was just trying to get a vague sense of comparable solutions. Thanks.
The speed table is more like 500,000?
Speed table is, yes, because that usually requires us to have some drainage.
Okay,
It's more
Councilor
like
Maliki?
450.
Sorry, what's the cost of a speed table?
About 450.
450,000
Yeah.
both sides of the street.
So it would be at a four-way intersection, it would be the width of the intersection, the table's up, it requires drainage.
On both streets.
Yeah,
So that, okay, so.
it depends on the design.
And heat.
this would require, and we may have to deactivate it.
Yeah.
Oh, and I did not mention, I am not a big fan of cutting into our streets because it does allow water and our roadways to deteriorate quicker.
Yeah, so I signed up for
Oh.
their webinar and like, I don't know, 8 a.m, it's like a normal time, their time in Sweden or whatever. And yeah, so the cost, she said was $64,000 a pair. Pardon me, plus, the software license fee for monitoring and data access would be $2,800 a year for the pair. And then there was, as Commissioner Sullivan said, annual maintenance, they would need to be sort of one cleaning every year and about every 10 years, something more major. Then they had not done any in the United States. The heating coil was part of these, part of the standard package. One example, I guess, where I on the first one. Last winter, first winter, I don't know. They went from 74% people speeding to 5% people speeding. In Malmö, Sweden, they had another fix and then installed another 10. They required like a 5-meter tall pole. And they excavate 48 centimeters to install the thing. It needs electricity. If you wanted to power it with solar power, you need 10 square feet of solar panel, I guess. Emergency vehicle personnel were positive on it. I asked about do drivers speed up afterwards, like after they feel the depression, she felt it was effective from between up to like 75 meters or even 200 meters before and after. They got sort of an effect that drivers would drive slower compared to about 50 meters for regular speed bumps. They were 2.6 meters wide, the standard width of a lane. So those were just some of the numbers. Yeah, but they basically hadn't done any in the United States.
That's interesting, all that information. Any
And
questions?
the drainage that, so the, because they're melting the snow around it, I guess they are in the trenched area, the drainage goes into the stormwater system.
Okay. So Counselor Silver has joined us. You're the lead docketer on this. I wish you were here 10 minutes earlier.
Sorry.
Commissioner Sullivan went through in detail a lot of research on this.
Yes.
But I think there's some highlights that this isn't, it's not, I mean, you probably know, it's not federally mandated yet, it's not approved federally. So it's not used in the United States at all. And she went through a variety of reasons why she wouldn't want to test it here. And we'd still have to get approval federally to actually even try to test it. But I think her statement's quite extensive, so that's going to go into the record as well.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah, I would just comment briefly that, really we need more options for traffic control. I'm pleased to see that the bill for looking at speed cameras is moving its way through the state legislature, and our state legislators have both signed on to it as sponsors. So, I mean, anything that's less expensive than what we have to do to get people to slow down is great, and I hope to take it up with our new chief of police to figure out how we can continue to make vehicles travel easily and safely through the city. As probably everybody knows, we had a fatal accident just, I don't know if it was yesterday, the day before yesterday, so. Yeah, so, timely, I guess.
Thank you. I mean, this is, I totally agree. And I do think that if the cameras go through for the state, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, and I think we would have the opportunity to install about 18.
Yeah.
Based on our 90,000 population and 5,000 per, so. I mean, it would get us started anyway, and probably be much more cost effective than either tables or even this, so.
Councilor Gordon, do you have a question?
Yes.
Anybody else? Question? All right, is there a motion?
What do you, I guess to NAN it or to, everyone's sort of where it needs to be. Okay.
All right.
I guess I had to do that. Okay, if we get NAN.
All right, so Councilor Getz has motion to NA on this item. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I'm staying only because I wasn't here for the conversation.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We are adjourned.
So what's going on over there?
Is it done? Just done.
Just.